Alexa, my girl, today I will be reviewing Willow Nightingale's first ever figure. And with her contagious, happy, positive attitude, that's what today's video is going to be all about. So, I'm going to need you to change, probably everything about what goes on inside your head for today.
Mayor Aaron, my personality is what makes me, me. I'm not changing it for anything.
Okay, fair point. And I love you for who you are, Co-Mayor Alexa. But today we are all about happiness and positivity. Like me, I am always happy. And it's because of what goes on within me.
I've often wondered what goes on inside your head.
Oh, it is a party up in here. My question is, what goes on in that little head of yours?
Yeah, this is my safe place. Fire, blood, darkness. The only thing missing is creep music.
Oh, on second thought, maybe I don't want to know what goes on inside your head because when I imagine it, it just seems dark and angry and not exactly what today's review is going to be all about. So why don't you sit this one out, okay? But me, I need to get into my happy place and get ready for today's super positive happy review. Hey y'all, welcome to LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. Now before we get started, I just want to remind you to please hit subscribe to become an official resident of LJV and get a first look at all future women's wrestling figure reviews like today's very exciting review of AEW Jazzwares Unrivaled Series 17 Willow Nightingale. So this is really almost a surreal moment here, because I wasn't sure if we'd ever get a Willow figure. She's not exactly a main event star in AEW, even though she brings so much energy, so much positivity, and I absolutely love her, and I think she's a huge star. I love that AEW is making these stars of the women's division from the top of the card to the middle of the card. I think that's so cool, and that's something that Mattel hasn't done a good job on. Yeah, we get a lot of main event figures through Mattel of some of the women, but here's Jazzwares looking like they absolutely knocked it out of the park with this Willow, and I'm so grateful. And as I've said many a times over this last year, there's no one making better women's wrestling figures right now than Jazzwares. So that being said, let's take a closer look at this figure, and let's start out with the packaging. Alright, so starting out with the packaging here, I've said it before every time I review an AEW figure here in LumberJillville, I think that Jazzwares and AEW has the most beautiful and sharp packaging out there on toy shelves. I'm not just talking wrestling figures, I think action figures in general, and especially when it comes to wrestling. I think their packaging is just amazing. Now, they have made some minor changes here between this and the last figure I reviewed, And the changes are minor, which is a good thing. So this black color that goes in contrast with the gold has a little bit of a pattern or a design to it here. Much like what we saw on the last AEW figure, the unmatched Sky Blue, it just has a little more character, a little more design, I guess you could say, to it in that black. Also, the background, that yellow background, the gold background, I guess you could say, has a little bit of a pattern to it. It looks really, really good. We have a nice open window here. It's so nice seeing an open window on a wrestling action figure, isn't it, everybody? Take notes, Mattel. We have a nice open window where we can see this awesome looking Willow figure. She comes with extra hands. Now, she is throwing up the deuces. She's giving a peace sign, but it's really hard to tell in the packaging. So that's one thing that I could do without. And I did order two, and the other one, the fingers are crushed, and there's no way that it comes out looking like a peace sign. But this one looks okay intact, but you can't really tell what she's doing there with her hands. But either way, we have an image of the beautiful and talented Willow Nightingale on the front. We have her name on the side. On the side, we have another image of her along with the figure number and the series. We have on the other side the AEW logo, and on the back we have a nice big image of Willow and her little screen printed autograph here, which is a beautiful autograph now that I'm looking at it. It is truly a cool looking auto here. Now, they don't have the date that this Attire is from on the back of the package, and I'm glad that they didn't do that. And they kind of dropped it with that last unmatched figure with Sky Blue. They didn't have a date on the back of that package either, and I'm kind of glad because they were about 50-50 as far as accuracy goes, which makes my job a little harder. And let me tell you, I had a tough time finding this Attire, but I found a match, an exact match where she wore this Attire, and stay tuned, I'll be telling you what it's from, and it is so random. However, I did find it, so I think that's really cool that we have an image on the back of Willow. And then we have the rest of the series there, which is a very WWE-esque series. We have Edge, Ricky Starks in NXT now. We have Willow. We have Christian, former WWE legend. Killswitch or Luchasaurus, then we have Swerve, former WWE. So, with that being said, we're going to open this up. Now, I've tried doing it the humane way, opening up this package in a humane way on the channel, and I've just given up. I've given up, so I'm going to get my scissors here. We're just going to cut it open, and we're going to take a closer look at the figure. AEW Jazzwares Unrivaled Series 17 Willow Nightingale. This attire is from the April 7th, 2023 episode of Ring of Honor Honor Club. On this night, Willow defeated Little Mean Kathleen. Yes, I did tons of research to find what this attire is from. Some overall first impressions of this figure. It is such a cool figure. Like I said, it almost feels surreal that AEW continues to deliver so many various different women from their division. Now, I wish that their figure releases were a little more steady like Mattel, and we got more women's wrestling figures per year. But each women's wrestling figure that they've put out, I'd say over the last year and a half, has been an absolute banger. And this Willow is so unique and so detailed. And what's cool about the uniqueness of it is unique to her. There's not a whole lot of reused parts here. There's not a whole lot of shortcuts taken that you see a lot of times with Mattel. We have a lot of uniqueness here, and I love adding unique women's wrestling figures to my collection. Now, I will talk about the Attire. As I mentioned, where I found it from was a match where she defeated Little Mean Kathleen on a Ring of Honor Honor Club episode. And yeah, I did a lot of research on her attires, and that is the only night that I could find that this attire was perfectly matched up to a match in real life. So you have to let me know in the comments if she wore this in a more significant night. I know that the rare chase version, whatever you want to call it, that is in like the greenish and the gold, I believe that's when she had that match against Mercedes. A really big match there for her. But here, even though it's kind of an abstract match, it's a beautiful attire, and I absolutely love it. Now, she comes with a peace hand, throwing up the deuces, as we say, an open hand, and then she comes with an extra pair of fist hands. And yes, as you can see, well, you probably can't see, but now you can see we have painted thumbnail there, and the fingernails are painted on the hands on the figure. So, very, very cool. Now, let's take a closer look at this figure, and let's go over the face sculpt, face scan, and hair sculpt. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about is kind of what I've seen in a lot of comments when Ringside posted pictures of both this, the standard version, and also the rare out of 3000 version, that a lot of people preferred that sculpt and scan on the rare out of 3000 version, and I'm definitely one of those people. I think that sculpt and scan is freaking perfect, and it's sad for me to say that I don't know if I'll ever get a hold of that rare figure. A lot of times the chases and rares have been a little troublesome to get, especially for me. So it's unfortunate that they didn't go with that sculpt and scan on the standard figure, the figure that's more easily available, but if you haven't seen it yet, make sure to go on Ringside Collectibles Instagram account. Check out that rare edition out of 3000. I think that sculpt and scan is superior. Now here, looking at this one, I think it does a pretty good job of looking like Willow. I think it's a little bit off, to be completely honest with you. I think that it's good, but it's not great, and by no means is perfect. And as I mentioned, I do prefer that rare sculpt and scan and facial expression that they went with on that rare. But here, I think it works okay. I think it works okay. I do love that they gave her a smile, and it looks like she has a nose ring. She's got a nose ring in there, so that's really, really cool. I like the detail they did on her eye makeup. Eyebrows look good, and the hair sculpt is beautiful. The hair sculpt is really, really awesome. Obviously, a unique sculpt for her all the way around. It's just a beautiful, beautiful hairstyle there. And we have some blonde highlights on the side, also on the top, and then a little bit on the front here. So yeah, the hair sculpt is excellent. And the face sculpt and face scan, I will say it's good. But, as I mentioned, I much prefer that rare face sculpt and scan that they went with. The face on that one is far superior to this one, in my opinion. But I think this one is pretty good. Alright, so going over the body sculpt and the attire, the first thing I'll say about the body sculpt, I feel like her feet and her hands are so tiny. They are tiny, 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 tiny. I don't understand why her feet and her hands are so small on this figure, but it's not a huge glaring issue, and I think the rest of it is really, really cool as far as the attire and the sculpt goes. And as I mentioned, we have a bunch of uniquely sculpted parts that were made specifically for Willow, and I think that is so cool, and I can't say enough good about it. How Jazzwares, especially over the last year, year and a half, has really made each women's wrestling figure unique to that female superstar. I think that is so tremendous, so amazing, and this Willow's no different. It is so cool that she has her own unique body sculpt that really does represent her physique, and it looks awesome. I can't say enough good about that, and hats off to Jazzwares for that. Now let's look at the tattoo detail first. So it looks like on her chest we have a tattoo that I can't really make out the lettering there, but there is a tattoo there on the chest. The arm tattoo is beautiful. There's a lot of detail here, but I will say, and I've said this before, I think sometimes where Jazzwares falls a little short are the tattoo details. I feel like Mattel screen prints them on in like a faded black. It looks excellent. And I think Jazzwares might screen print them on a little too sharp. I think it looks a little too sharp and colorful where it almost looks like a decal rather than it looks like a tattoo that she's had for a minute. So it's cool that we have all that detail all throughout. We have all those different colors. A lot of effort and attention went into the tattoo detail alone. But as I mentioned, there's something a little bit off about the tattoo detail with the Jazzwares figures, in my opinion. And this is a glaring example of that. But it is cool that it does have all the detail. It just, like I said, it looks more like a decal. It looks like she went on vacation in Florida and got one of those, like, tattoo permanent for a month tattoos on her arm. But I digress. Oh gosh, she almost fell off of the table there. Now, looking at the attire is freaking awesome. I love pink attire, and I love having women's wrestling figures that have unique attire that stands out amongst all the women's wrestling figures in LumberJillville, and this attire does that awesomely. It is so detailed. Now, obviously, there's a unique sculpt for her chest, her upper body, and what's really cool is her attire. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's multi-layered. She has like a singlet type top that goes around the undertop, and they do a good job of making it look layered and making it look accurate to what she wears. Now, she does roll those down sometimes, so they almost could have done like a soft rubber piece or something that you could kind of fold down or roll down like she often does in her matches. But I don't know how that would turn out, so I think the route that they went is just as effective, and I think it looks really, really sharp. I love that we have that pink base color. We have a lot of the tealish blue. Now remember, I'm colorblind. We have like the metallic silver trim, that silver black pattern there. We have this net pattern on the chest. On the back, we have even more detail that I can't even begin to explain because there's silvers and teals and pink and patterns, and it's really cool. And if you feel it, you can feel that there are ledges to the sculpting, so it does appear multi-layered. Now, Mattel would be guilty of just painting the layers on top of each other and not actually sculpting the layers. And this is a much more effective way to give the attire depth, and I think it looks excellent there. Moving on down to the midsection and the bottoms there, it is a continuation of that singlet type top as I told you, and it is sculpted on there with the silver, pink, and tealish coloring. It looks beautiful. Moving around to the back, we have that design that goes down along with those bright, vibrant colors. As I mentioned, we have painted fingernails, which is a blue or a purple. Colorblind Aaron can't tell the difference. Let me know in the comments. We even have a little hand tattoo. There we go. We have a little hand tattoo there, and I'm sure I'm missing some tattoo details here. And yeah, even though this figure in package, the deuces, the peace sign going up there, it looked better than my other one. It still is a little funky. It's a little crooked, a little funky. She does have these white wrist tapes painted on. Moving on down, her knee pads are really, really cool. I mean, they are separate pieces, but they're painted beautifully. A nice fluorescent pink on the right, and the left has that silver design. And her boots are unique and really, really cool in design and paint application there. Also, sculpting work with the laces is great. And I do feel like the feet are really, really small. Let's see if we can get a zoom out. Yeah, I mean, you can even tell the feet are tiny. But yeah, so as far as the body sculpt and the attire goes, absolutely tremendous. I think it's beautiful. As far as articulation goes, the head can move in all different directions. We have shoulder on a ball joint, and just like all the AEW women's figures, they kind of ratchet into place, which is super cool. Upper arm swivel, we have double jointed elbows that can really flex. She can almost like clean her ears there with her finger. Why would I say that? Her hands can rotate around. They can extend up and down. She has an upper torso swivel that doesn't have a whole lot of movement. We have a waist swivel. Hip is on a ball joint. Can move in all different directions. We have an upper thigh swivel. Knees don't bend very well because the placement of the knee pads, I will say, I don't want to break this figure. But the knees, okay. That one bent pretty good. And this one I'm sure will take a little bit of effort there to get it to bend, but it bends about 45 degrees or so, which is not terrible. We also have an upper boot swivel, and then the feet can planar flex down, dorsiflex up, and they can rock a little bit side to side. So articulation is pretty good. So now let's do a little scale comparison here. Now, as I mentioned on the channel lots and lots and lots of times, scale is something that Jazzwares and Mattel have both thrown out the window years ago. Anyone that says otherwise are lying to themselves. If figures are in scale with each other, then it's all by a happy accident, because more often than not, they just use the parts they have. And even Jazzwares that has uniquely sculpted parts, a lot of times their figures will end up too tall or too short. The Ruby Soho is too tall, Sky Blue too tall, and so on and so on. So scale isn't a huge deal to me unless it's an absolute atrocity when on display with other figures. Now, I just pulled out Julia Hart to put up with Willow because Julia is my favorite AEW women's figure. It is my favorite AEW figure, period. I love this Julia Hart. I think it's perfect. I absolutely love it. Now, Julia's listed at 5'7". Willow's listed at 5'6". Now, as you can see, Julia is taller than Willow, and it works okay. I still think this Julia, even though I just said it's perfect, she might be a little bit too tall because she is still rather short. You know, she's listed at 5'7", and that's arguable when you see her compared to some of the other superstars, but she is listed taller than Willow, and here we have that. So these two look great together. This Willow will look great on display with all of your AEW women's figures. So overall, I give AEW Unrivaled Series 17 Willow Nightingale an overall score of a 9.5 out of 10. This figure's excellent. Now the main, and I almost want to say the only reason it isn't a perfect 10 and points were taken off is because the face sculpt and scan on that rare Willow out of 3,000 is leaps and bounds better than what we got on the standard release. In my opinion, I think this figure would be close to a perfect 10, if not a perfect 10, if that sculpt and scan that's on the rare was on this one or on them both. I wish they would have used that sculpt and scan on both figures or put it on the standard, because the standard Willow is going to be the easier one to find. And right now, we have no idea how easy or how hard the Willow out of 3,000 is going to be to find. And it's frustrating that that one has such a better sculpt and scan of the face. And that's just in my opinion. And I haven't had the best luck finding AEW rares and chases as far as the women's figures go. I found one in my whole collecting career, and that was the Anna Jay. It'll forever be probably my favorite figure in my collection for that reason. I love it, absolutely love it. But we don't know right now at the time of this video how hard or how easy it's going to be to find. And that's frustrating to know that the best possible version of Willow might be hard to acquire or expensive to acquire. But other than that, everything else with this figure is so cool. I think Jazzwares and AEW have been absolutely killing it when it comes to their women's wrestling figures. I can't say enough good about how unique they make each one of their women's wrestling figures, at least over the last year and a half, and how they make each one a mini representation of the superstar with a lot of detailed, custom, unique molding and sculpting in their attire, their body shape, their body sculpt. It's amazing. I don't think Mattel is coming close to that kind of quality as of late. Now, I would like to see Jazzwares really amp up their production to where we get more than one figure every 2 months, because as of now, that's kind of what it's been as far as women's wrestling figures go. But yeah, this figure is awesome. If you're a fan of Willow, fan of AEW, or a fan of women's wrestling figures, I think it's an easy pickup. Thanks for stopping by LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. To get a first look at all future women's wrestling figure reviews, make sure to hit subscribe and become an official resident of LJV today. Just a reminder, every single Monday night there is an episode of LJV's Monday Night Classic Reviews, where I review a women's wrestling figure of the past. Now, with that being said, I did get notification that a certain exclusive Tony Storm should be in LJV very soon. So hopefully that review will be out shortly. I appreciate y'all watching, and have a great night, y'all.